It's the odd that the things we remember sometimes. I was walking down the toy aisle a couple days ago, looking for something to give my soon-to-be 3-year-old niece for her birthday. Everything was brightly colored and cheerful, starting with a turtle with a head that bobbed up and down when he pulled its tail, and ending what looked like a mashup between a dragon and a fairy princess colored all in pink. And there, dead center in the middle of the aisle, was a loosely gathered bunch of Care Bear toys. Cloying and sweet, their eyes stared up at me, as if to say what a wonderful gift they would be for a small girl 3. I reached down and picked up the dark blue grumpy bear. Of all the bears he has gone through the least changes over the years. I think it's because his mind is the strongest. He has no need to change in his shape or form to keep his sanity. I put the bear back down and gazed at it. Odd thing to think of, but then it was an odd Care Bear's tail I had seen too. Or maybe I thought I saw. The whole thing has to be the quality of fever dream to it, which is appropriate since I was sick at the time, and as I looked at the little storm cloud in his tummy, I remembered. It was a sunny afternoon in March, the temperature of 101, and vomiting had kept me home from school that day. I'd passed the worst stages of my sickness earlier in the morning, and I was now thoroughly enjoying my life on the couch, consuming anything the TV would throw my way. My mom had left to some errands, so I was alone at the house. Normally, I would abuse this freedom by raiding some ice cream out of the freezer. I was too tired, though, and still felt slightly nauseous. That might explain why I didn't change the channel when the brightly colored bears came on. At 9 years old, I had far past the age where Care Bears would have been an okay thing to watch. But tired and still slightly sick, I let it play. I remember the villain was someone called Professor Coldheart. He looked like a cheap Mr. Freeze knockoff with frozen blue skin, white hair, and a pedo stare. His whole thing was that he hated feelings, because honestly, he reminds me of now one of those stupid Captain Planet villains. Why did he pollute the environment? Because if they didn't, there wouldn't be a villain to fight. Duh. Maybe I'm expecting too much of a show aimed at toddlers, though. There was a lot of back and forth about feelings with the fuzzy little mascots going on and on about joy and caring. So, sick or not, I was getting up to change the channel because I was going to be sick if I had to hear the word caring one more time. Suddenly, Professor Coldheart pulled out a large black book. But they promised me, if I called them, they will end feelings. Coldheart exclaimed while opening the book. Little bears all seemed confused, all except Grumpy Bear. Care Bears, don't let him read that from that book, he exclaimed. Tenderheart, call for the stare. A little red-brown bear with a heart on his tummy nodded. Care Bears, line up, he called. But even as he did, Coldheart began to chant. I sat on the floor and watched wide-eyed. I couldn't understand a word he was saying. No, that's a lie. Or rather, it's not entirely true. He wasn't speaking English. He wasn't speaking any language I've ever heard. But my mind was forming pictures, and they weren't happy. They involved in large black masses that ate the star, and writhing and squirming things long enough to wrap around the world. Tenderheart faltered, with a hand to his head. The other bears quickly followed the suit. They lie and wait for the stars, I heard Tenderheart mutter. A carnivorous portal opened behind Coldheart, and he giggled, a giggle full of madness and no glee. Grumpy Bear stood up and stared at it in horror. Shadowy things that flickered on the edge of the vision began to appear on the screen, coming from the opening. Looking back, it was some fantastic animation. I haven't seen its like since. The shadowy things were reaching for the bear. Grumpy Bear's tummy glowed, and he summoned forth several thunderclouds. He used them to set up a protective barrier from the bears, lightning arcing from them and sizzling the shadowy things as they closed in. It wasn't going to be enough, though, and although I would have been ashamed to admit that my little 9-year-old self was kind of scared. The shadowy things bore a very strange resemblance to the things flicking through my own head now. Grumpy Bear looked from Coldheart to the bears, and then, I swear to God, straight at me. I mean, I know he was just animated to be looking at the camera, but it felt like he could see me and whoever was watching feel our fear. He nodded. I have to break the connection, he said. Turning back to Coldheart, he closed his eyes and concentrated, tummy lighting up brighter than I had ever seen. A gigantic thundercloud appeared above them, filling the entire building. Coldheart looked at him in awe. Then a gigantic lightning strike fell from the cloud. At first I thought it was going to strike Coldheart instead. It fell at his feet. He screeched and jumped backwards, losing his balance. And when he did, he fell backward into the portal behind him. Still holding the black book, there was a mighty clap of thunder, and the screen turned to white. For a moment, I wondered if we had a power surge that had the TV. After a few moments, it cleared though. Grumpy Bear was going to each bear now, picking them off the floor, patting them on the back, saying a few encouraging words. I can't live with it, a green bear with a clover on his belly said. I saw things, so many things. Don't worry, good luck, Grumpy said, patting the bear's back. You won't have to. None of you will. Then it rolled to the credits. I crawled back over to the couch and hauled myself up. I was slightly disappointed. I wanted to know what Grumpy meant, but I pushed it off my mind. It was just a Care Bears episode after all. I remember the first movie came out slightly afterwards, serving as some sort of reboot to the franchise. No more Coldheart and a whole bunch of different passive animals just to play with all along with the bears. I never saw the episode again, and then I never bothered seeking it out. 13 years later, I found me in an English literature class at an out-of-state college. It was once one of those classes where everyone from freshmen to seniors could be found in it. I was just in my senior year and I needed a random class to fill out my general education block. For some reason, at the end of the class, a bunch of us got to talking about the shows we used to watch when we were little. The subject eventually turned into the Care Bears. You know, I saw the strangest episode when I was 9, I said. I quickly outlined the dramatics with Coldheart in the book. Everyone stared at me like I had gone off my gourd. Are you sure it's just didn't hallucinate it? A guy to my right, we called the pastor, said. Wait, he's right. A blonde freshman named Callie exclaimed. But it wasn't Coldheart, it was No Heart. Who the hell is No Heart? I asked, turning to her. He's the main villain from the Nelvana series, the one that came after the DIC episodes. He had a black book like you, and all the bears seemed confused except Grumpy. He was flipping out. Also, No Heart called all of his shadowy monster things the young ones. She laughed. I don't know how it ended. It just actually scared me enough if I changed the channel. She shook her head. It was Care Bears, though how bad could it have been? She became thoughtful for a second. It was near the end of the Nelvana run-through. Might have been the last episode. Yeah, I vote both of you are nuttier than the nut house, Pastor said. And the group laughed in agreement. The conversation piqued my curiosity, though. The school had some computers that were free for students to use that ran at the blazing fast dial-up speed of 56 kbs. This was back in 1998, so the internet was not the instant answer place that it is now. Hell, Google was still called Google Beta, and I viewed it with suspicion because it was new. I ended up using Yahoo, and let me tell you, it's not much better now than it was. A couple hours of searching left me with no clues. I could find no mention of either Callie's episode or mine anywhere. I let it lie there. There have been a couple series since there. Bears have come and gone, but Grumpy has always been there from what little I've been seen, largely unchanged. Sometimes I wonder if there are others out there who saw the strange episodes as each series finished out. Deep down, I don't really want to know. I think if I did know, I'd have to accept some facts. I really don't want to. Snapping out of my reverie, I got ready to leave the toy aisle. I turned back one last time to look at the bears, and then, almost on impulse, I reached down and picked up the grumpy bear. Perhaps I owned him that much, and perhaps there were worse things that could snuggle next to my niece as she slept.